It's a lot. So good morning, everyone. It's really good to have you on the show. Let's go ahead and kick it off.
Welcome to the news, the ignition news. We're not Democratic news. We're not Republican news. We're not independent news. We're the ignition news, your unfiltered, unvarnished source for the truth in American media today, a time when it's needed the most. So sit back, grab a seat, and listen to the news. But it's not just enough to listen to the live show. You got to follow along on your favorite podcasting platform. Join us over on Spotify, our chief destination, or find us on YouTube podcasts, on Apple Podcasts, or on Substack. Thanks for tuning into the ignition. Let's ignite.
Okay.
Let's get busy with the truth.
Good morning, everyone. It's so good to be back on the show today. We are recording the Ignition News while streaming on all of your favorite platforms. Believe it or not, we made some upgrades before we move to the app. So I know I've been talking about the studio for a long time. It is coming. It's going to be really cool. It just takes time, money, and effort. And so it's a little bit of a day at a time. But we got the technical stuff going on. We're on YouTube now, Twitch. We are also on Instagram as well as TikTok. And of course, broadcasting on all of your favorite platforms. But the show is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of your favorite podcast platforms. I was away from the country for a week. I'll talk about that in a little bit. I have a story to tell you about my re-entering the United States. It was not pleasant. I'm sure that doesn't surprise any of you to hear that. But let's go ahead and get to the news. If you're new to the stream, if you're new to the show, I want to let you know this is the Ignition News, your daily news source for all the updates happening in the country, an unbiased, uncensored, unfiltered news source. And we do have a lot of things to talk about today. So let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and get into it. Good morning, everyone. Obviously, I want to start out with the fact that it is Martin Luther King Day, a day that we're supposed to reflect on our civil rights for constitutional protections and for the dignity of every person. We've obviously come a long way, but everything that we fought for over the last decades of our lives is being shredded in front of us in real time. So that's why we're here. We're talking about it live. Let's get into it. Ground zero for the American constitutional crisis is and continues to be Minneapolis, Minnesota. Yesterday morning, protesters interrupted a church service in St. Paul, Minnesota, not to vandalize, not to threaten. They went to demand accountability because one of the pastors at City's Church, David Easterwood, also happens to be the acting director of ICE's St. Paul field office. The same David Easterwood who in court filings defended ICE's use of flashbang grenades, chemical irritants, and swapping license plates to avoid detection. The same David Easterwood overseeing operations that killed Renee Good, a 37-year-old mother of three, shot in the head by ICE on January 7th. Protesters interrupted the church service, chanting justice for Renee Good and ICE out during the service. The response from the Trump administration? Well, the DOJ announced it's investigating the protesters, not for violence or destruction of property, but for, quote, desecrating a house of worship and interfering with Christian worshipers. There you go. The mask is off. While the ICE agents are storming around Minneapolis and around the country, afraid to take their masks off, the mask is off at the DOJ. And what I have been saying for over a year is now plain for you to see. It is now undeniable. America is a Christian nationalist fascist dictatorship. And now they're saying the quiet part out loud. While their ICE agents roam around the country masking up, it seems they can no longer hide behind the facade anymore. The United States government has been taken over by Christian nationalist fascists. The positive note is they're very incompetent and they don't know what they're doing. But let's continue. Here's what's happening. Let's be crystal clear about what happened. A man who directs federal agents using violent tactics against American citizens also preaches on Sundays. When community members showed up to confront that contradiction, Attorney General Pam Bondi herself called the pastor to promise federal prosecution under the FACE Act. The DOJ is investigating protesters while ICE agents operate with impunity. The DOJ blames Tim Waltz and Jacob Frey for whipping mobs into a frenzy, and ICE claims protesters are, quote, hunting for federal law enforcement by going hotel to hotel, church to church. Of course, what they're not telling you is 3,000 people have been arrested in Minnesota under Operation Metro Surge. In Minnesota, since this began, multiple United States citizens have been detained. Renee Good was not attempting to run over officers. She was shot at point-blank range in the head while turning her car away from ICE agent Jonathan Ross. The community knows what is happening. The world sees what is happening, and we refuse to be silent. That's why thousands have taken to the streets. That's why they're banging drums outside of hotels where ICE agents are sleeping. And that's why they showed up at that church. It is ironic to me that now, all of a sudden, the DOJ is interested in civil rights and is prosecuting these protesters for, quote, civil rights violations. Who's whipping people up in a frenzy, by the way? It's not Jacob Frey. It's not Tim Waltz, both of who, by the way, you're not going to find endorsements from me on. But the people whipping people up is the United States government whipping up Christian nationalists. That's what's happening. Don't ignore what's actually happening. Now, if that news wasn't crazy enough, by the way, thank you for following the Ignition News, your daily news source. I do got to ask you a big favor, a couple things before I get into it. Please go follow the show on your favorite podcasting platform. Not every show is recorded live, so you're not always able to get the show on the live stream. I want to thank everyone who downloaded the episodes of the news while I was away. That means so much to me. And the show, by the way, while I was not live, the show grew by something like 1,500% just from the downloads alone. So I just want to say big thanks to everyone who downloaded the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on YouTube Podcasts as well. Let's get into the next story. Please do click that follow button. Speaking of unhinged, crazy shit, by the way, I don't know if you've seen this or not, but the President of the United States sent a text message to the Norwegian Prime Minister. And it caused a massive global shock to the financial markets. Here's what the President of the United States texted the Norwegian Prime Minister. Considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars, plus I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace, although it will be always predominant, but can now think about what is good and proper for the United States of America. The world is not secure unless we have complete and total control of Greenland. He actually said that in a text message. This is crazy. This is crazy. First, Norway's government does not award the Nobel Peace Prize, okay? An independent committee awards the Nobel Peace Prize. Second, Greenland is a part of Denmark, not Norway. Third, the president is threatening military action against a NATO ally because he didn't win the award. Markets reacted pretty dramatically. S&P 500 futures were down 1.12%. European markets have fallen down 1%. Trump announced tariffs of 10% on 8 European nations. And Deutsche Bank warned that only 17% of Americans support acquiring Greenland and only 4% support using military force. By the way, who are these 17%? Who are these people? So the Norwegian Prime Minister did respond to this. He reminded the president that the Nobel Committee is independent. Keir Starmer tried to de-escalate the situation, saying he doesn't believe military action will occur, but he calls the president's tariff threats patently absurd. I actually think this part's a little bit crazier. So you probably saw this over the weekend as well. The Venezuelan opposition leader, Maria Machado, literally gave the president her Nobel Peace Prize, which, by the way, she can't do that. And now I think there's an actual question. Here's my question for you before I talk about this. So the Nobel Committee has said, you cannot give away your Peace Prize. Well, in my opinion, that invalidates her peace. But first of all, who is this woman getting this Peace Prize and giving it to Donald Trump of all people? It's this continuation of capitulation. We're going to talk about what Martin Luther King told us in terms of resistance, but I've got to think that there are some strong men and women in this country and around the world who can stand up to this insanity. This woman gave him the Nobel Peace Prize. That's how desperate they are. It's insane. And the fact that, I'm getting into this now. Can you imagine if any other president, talk about Obama, talk about Biden, talk about Clinton, Bush, can you imagine if they had thrown a hissy fit about the Nobel Peace Prize and it forced an opposition leader, by the way, to fly to the United States and give up her Nobel Peace Prize? Are you fucking kidding me? Do you know how quickly that president would have been impeached by 12 o'clock on the same day? Because that's fucking crazy. It's crazy. I know there's so much crazy stuff happening right now, but that pettiness, that little petulance, dude, go take care of your cankles. Stop worrying about your fucking Nobel Peace Prize. This is insane. Let's get on to what the consequences of this are, by the way. Yikes. There is growing calls for the president's impeachment. Okay? There's actually a committee called Free Speech for People's Impeach Trump Again campaign. They have already collected 1 million petition signatures demanding Congress begin impeachment proceedings. Now, here's what I'll say. We all know petitions don't mean shit. We know they don't, go sign this petition. The reality is the conversation. America exists in an Overton window. We are never going to see change unless we publicly call and demand change. So if everyone says, oh, the president can't be impeached, the president's never going to be impeached. But if more of us show up on the streets, if more of us demand doing this, then the conversation begins to shift. And I am not, listen, again, we all know petitions don't do shit. But what they do is they represent the movement that is swinging, the swinging of the movement. So if everyone says, oh, it's not realistic that the president can be impeached, you're damn right it's not realistic if you don't open your mouth and say something. This is insane. But here's what the petition calls for impeachment. Obviously, no surprise to anyone on the show. I've been off for a week. Give me a minute. Number one, unlawfully mobilizing military forces against civilians, illegally kidnapping and detaining U.S. citizens and residents, systemically violating First Amendment, attempting to manipulate congressional districting, dismantling independent government oversight, and abusing power to deprive the public of accurate information. So that's 1 million people have signed that. 78 members of Congress, if you're not already aware, voted to advance Al Green's impeachment article 4 times as many as were on record. Let me back up and say that. 78 Congress officials said, yes, we're going to impeach him. Only a quarter of those people we knew existed before the vote. It's pretty wild. Why is this important? Well, President Kankles is again talking about canceling the midterm elections. Let's move on to the next story. Everyone, I'm so happy to be with you. It's so good to be back. I missed you all. Before I get into the next story, I know if you're watching live on the show, please do subscribe and follow the show. It takes a lot of effort. I'm going to be very honest with you. I wore myself out and I had to take a breather. So I had to step away for a week because I was not getting sleep, but I'm in it. We're in it together. If I can do it, you can do it. But it's an important reminder before I get into the next part here. You can't be a superhero. You're not a superhero. I'm not a superhero. We're human beings made of flesh and bone and blood. And we got to take a breather every now and then. So I want to just, before I get into the next story, I want to let you know that it's important for me personally that you maintain your mental health. It's important for me personally that you take a breather. And it's important for you to remind me and hold me accountable to these things as well. Okay? Because I get wrapped up in this just like you do. I get impassioned about this just like you do. And I really found myself, I found myself saying, I got to disconnect. I got to step away. And I left the country to just get out and see what's happening in the world. And I got to tell you, everyone I talked to was like, why aren't you doing more? Why aren't you guys stopping this? Why are you allowing this to happen? And I only say that to you because, and we'll talk about this later, but it is truly the silence of men, white men in this country, that is allowing this to continue. The silence and capitulation, actually, because you look at someone like Pete Hegseth. Pete Hegseth is not being quiet. He's a loud, annoying drunk. You can't get the guy to shut up. So it's not so much silence as it is complicity to this violence against the Constitution and the American people. It's great to be back, but I do have to remind you, it's important for you to take a break. And thank you for everyone. I was not expecting that. I actually didn't say I was leaving because, honestly, security reasons. But I just want to say thank you. Everyone who reached out to me after I got back and just said, it's okay to take a break. That really means a lot to me. It's very good to be back. Let's continue with our next story. In an interview with Reuters last week, Trump said, it's some deep psychological thing. But when you win the presidency, you don't win the midterms. When you think of it, we shouldn't even have an election. At a House Republican retreat, he said again, how we have to run even against these people. I won't say cancel the elections. They should cancel the election because the fake news would say he wants the elections canceled. He's a dictator. Then he told the New York Times he, quote, always respects the results of elections, but the elections in our country are rigged. Then Carolyn Levitt says Trump was, quote, simply joking and speaking facetiously. This is the 3rd time this month that he has floated canceling elections. He sees the writing on the wall, okay? He knows everything is coming to an end. He knows this. That's why they're slapping his face on every building. That's why they're trying to rename everything after him. He sees his legacy has failed. They thought they were going to come in, once again, ride off the coattails of a successful previous administration, be their little kings and queens everywhere, be the little Christian nationalist dictators, but now they're actually having to govern and they're failing and people are starting to get pissed and they're not allowing this authoritarianism and they're standing up in their communities. They thought they could go to Minnesota and all those nice, friendly Minnesota people would put their snow shovels and shovel out the driveway and just, welcome to Minnesota. Nice to have you. But they're saying, fuck you, get the fuck out. And so they didn't plan for this. They have no idea how to actually govern, and they're failing. Let's continue. The federal law on this is clear. The president of the United States cannot cancel elections, everybody. Congress sets the timing. The states independently administer elections, and there is no legal mechanism for the president of the United States to suspend national elections. We've got to start having some spine. We've got to start having some backbone. When the president says we're going to cancel elections, we've got to start saying, shut the fuck up. Shut your fucking mouth. Instead, oh, it's a joke. Oh, it's funny. It's this thing. It's that thing. Oh, it's so funny. No, this is our country. The president can't cancel fucking midterms. Congress, wake the fuck up. We can't tolerate this. But here's what he can do, okay? They can rewire voting rules. They can pressure Republicans to draw districts outside of the constitutional schedule. They can deploy federal agents to, quote, monitor elections. They can obviously throw up the chaos. Oh, the elections were rigged. And you should probably expect that they're going to do that. He threatened to implement the Insurrection Act. By the way, everyone says he's going to invoke the Insurrection Act today on MLK Day. I'm going to go on record now and say that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen today. He's not that stupid. So if you deploy military forces to Democratic cities, that's going to suppress the vote. And let's be honest, the last thing I'll say about this, we actually don't know what this crazy administration could do to try to cancel, suspend, or interfere with U.S. elections. But I can teach you what you are going to do. Our show is sponsored by Ignite, fighting fascism in the age of its rise. Ignite is a signature podcast teaching you how to fight against this fascism and how to build effective communities in your neighborhood. Whether that's calling Congress or running for office or fixing the pothole in front of your yard, Ignite is a signature guide. 12 episodes, 4 bonus episodes teaching you how to push back and fight against fascism. Can I get a shout out in the comments for Ignite? It's a great podcast. Go download Ignite. It's totally free. And season 2 is out now. The first episode, how to steal an election. It's funny, we're talking about the president trying to cancel or steal an election. In episode 1, I teach you how probable and possible it is for us to get our hands dirty, get into the election systems, and take it back, especially from the Democratic Party. Episode 2 is going to teach you how to do that even more. Whether that's running for office or supporting a candidate, our only path forward is to steal those elections legally by wresting control away from Democrats, Republicans who don't actually care about us. Learn how to do that in Ignite, Season 2, Episode 1, How to Steal an Elections. Let's go on elections. Jeez. All right. Next story. This is important. It's about DHS. So what we're learning from Minnesota is that ICE and DHS are actually blocking people from seeing attorneys while they're being held. So if you're not already aware, they're actually abducting people off the street who are protesting. They're taking them in vans. And now what we're learning is that they are actually denying them access to attorneys. Okay. One immigration attorney stood outside the attorney visitation room for hours trying to see a client. ICE agents keep telling him, we don't do attorney visitation. This is a major story. This is a huge story. So now they're taking people, whether that's immigrants or protesters, they're detaining them in federal custody. We know now that this has been the deadliest year in ICE custody history, that January is actually already starting to be the deadliest year again, the deadliest month again. Now they're holding these people, doing what with these people, we don't know, and they're denying attorneys the access to see these people. Here's what we know. Another attorney was told, if we let you see your clients, we would have to let all attorneys see their clients and imagine the chaos. Yeah, you do have to let attorneys see their clients. That's the Constitution. These are obviously violations of the Fifth Amendment and the Sixth Amendment, due process and right to counsel. One detained client has severe medical conditions requiring specific medication. His family tried to deliver them, and the attorney tried to confirm that he got that medicine. ICE refused access, and we don't know if he actually got that medicine. DHS denies that there are any constitutional violations, but obviously that's happening. Being denied access to counsel is a constitutional violation. And it's not just happening in Minnesota, by the way. In September, a federal judge in New York ordered DHS to provide detainees confidential access to lawyers within 24 hours. DHS knows it's violating the law. That's why they're doing this in the dark. That's why they're blocking attorneys. That's why they're blocking congressional oversight. What does this all mean? Today is Martin Luther King Day. Dr. King was investigated by the FBI. He was wiretapped. He was blackmailed. And ultimately, Martin Luther King was assassinated for demanding this country live up to its constitutional promises. People always ask me, what can I do to fight fascism? What are things I can do? Well, first, you can download Ignite, Fighting Fascism in the Age of Its Rise. But today, on this day, I don't think necessarily that I am not the right voice to talk to you about Martin Luther King Jr. But on this day, my challenge to you, go read his famous Letters from a Birmingham Jail. That's my assignment for you today. You can read it in under 30 minutes, and you can hear some of what King told us then and understand how it's relevant now. I want to share with you some of my most meaningful quotes from King's Letter from a Birmingham Jail, what they mean to me. And again, I want to challenge you to go read that. One of the things that King told us in his letter, quote number 1, oppressed people cannot remain oppressed forever. The urge for freedom will eventually come. Number 2, we know through painful experience that freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. Number 3, the question is not whether we will be extremist, but what kind of extremist will we be? Will we be extremists for hate, or will we be extremists for love? Will we be extremists for the preservation of injustice, or we will be extremists for the cause of justice? Be extremists for the cause of justice, friends. And the final quote. I'm really gonna leave you with this one here. There's many famous quotes from this letter, by the way, but this one means a lot to me. History is the long and tragic story of the fact that privileged groups seldom give up their privileges voluntarily. Individuals may see the moral light and voluntarily give up their unjust posture. But as Reinhold Niebuhr has reminded us, groups are more immoral than individuals. 4 concrete lessons about freedom. And one of the last things King says, well, actually one of the first things he says in the letter from Birmingham, I'm going to paraphrase right now, is he's explains that we're constantly told to wait for your freedom, wait for your justice, wait for liberation, wait for freedom. But what wait means to them is never. They tell you to wait because they don't want to tell you it's never going to happen. Again, I am very deeply paraphrasing right there. So don't just take it from me. This is Martin Luther King Day. Go take it from him. Learn from him. Go read Letter from a Birmingham Jail. Understand what he faced, the oppression that he faced, the inspiration that he gave to his communities, and learn these lessons before it's too late. In that letter again, he said, we know through painful experience that freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. Right now, federal agents are shooting Americans in the streets. The DOJ is investigating prosecutors instead of the cop who killed Renee Good. The president is threatening to seize NATO allies' territory because he didn't win a peace prize. Our constitutional rights are being shredded. And now the president is openly talking about canceling the elections. This is not normal, friends. I know that all of the craziness, we get used to this. This is authoritarianism happening to you in real time. Over 1 million people have signed the petition to impeach the president. Federal courts are ruling against ICE. Our communities are organizing. The resistance is real. The resistance is real, and it is growing. But we need every single person to take action. We need more. The government is counting on you to give up. They are counting on you to accept this is normal. They want you to believe nothing can change. Prove them wrong, friends. Prove them wrong. That's it for today, everyone. Thank you very much for tuning in to the Ignition News. Please go ahead and download this episode on your favorite podcasting platform. We'll see you back for tomorrow's Ignition News. Whew, we did it. Good